From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. With COVID numbers climbing, Yellowstone County's health officer is now warning that new measures may need to be taken, and soon. Yellowstone County Health Officer John Felton saying at a news conference today that COVID-19 cases are beginning to overwhelm hospitals and health workers trying to keep up with contact tracing. He says tighter restrictions will be put into place if numbers continue to rise. Well, this past week, the positivity rate was 36 per 100,000 in Yellowstone County. If it climbs to 40 per 100,000 for the week of October 31st, tougher restrictions would go into place on November 2nd. Now, that would mean group gatherings limited to 25 or fewer people, with the exception of schools. Restaurants and bars would be limited to 25% capacity. Establishments that sell alcohol would have to close by 10 p.m., and places of worship would be limited to 25% capacity. Felton says it's up to local residents to take precautions and reverse the trend.
Montanans have a strong sense of personal responsibility. This is our chance to prove that we care enough about the people in our community to be personally responsible for slowing the transmission of COVID-19. If we succeed together, we all enjoy the benefits of open businesses, open schools, and healthy family and friends. If we fail together, then all of us will suffer the effects of increased restrictions, more sickness, and more deaths.
Well, there were 408 cases in the last week in Yellowstone County. If that number jumps to 452 in a week's time, it means we've exceeded the 40 per 100,000 positivity rate, and those additional measures should be taken. If it should go to 50 at any time, Felton says the stricter restrictions would go into effect immediately. All 56 Montana counties now have confirmed coronavirus cases. The last to add one, Petroleum County. There are also 4 new deaths to report today. 1 victim in each of Bighorn, Cascade, Glacier, and Pend Oreille counties. That's a total of 195 deaths across Montana now. The state reports 212 new confirmed cases. Yellowstone County again had the highest at 34. Total active cases right around 5,000 now, and more than 10,000 Montanans have recovered. Well, the Billings city government is on track to receive $13 million in federal coronavirus relief money. Tonight, the city council was briefed on the expenses eligible to be paid through the CARES Act grants. The city can apply to have COVID-19 related expenses reimbursed through the state government using the federal funds. Since March 12th, the city has racked up $13 million in eligible payroll expenses for police and first responders' salaries. A few of the other expenses include $84,000 for technology to allow for video conferencing and working from home, along with $31,000 for personal protective equipment and cleaning supplies.
Billings isn't just sitting off on the sidelines saying we've got it covered. We're out there trying to make sure that the citizens of Billings are playing by the same rules that the federal government is setting up and the state of Montana is setting up.
Well, the federal grant money is a one-time only and has a deadline of September 30th to be spent, but city staff strongly think that the deadline will be pushed to the end of the year for incurred expenses to be reimbursed. President Trump returned to the White House this evening, 3 days after he was hospitalized with COVID-19. In a video posted on Twitter, the president said he's feeling better and urged people not to fear the coronavirus. Skylar Henry has more from Washington.
President Trump emerged from Walter Reed Army Medical Center wearing a surgical mask. He flashed a thumbs-up sign, then walked to his motorcade without assistance. After a short flight aboard Marine One, the president climbed the South Lawn stairs, then removed his mask and recorded a video message.
I learned so much about coronavirus, and one thing that's for certain, don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it. You're going to beat it. We have the best medical equipment, we have the best medicines, all developed recently.
The president's doctor says he will continue to undergo treatment at the White House.
Though he may not entirely be out of the woods yet, the team and I agree that all our evaluations, and most importantly, his clinical status, support the president's safe return home.
Dr. Conley said the president would be closely monitored for the next week.
If we can get through to Monday with him remaining the same or improving, better yet, then we will all take that final deep sigh relief.
At least 19 people with ties to the White House have tested positive for the coronavirus, including 2 Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Next week, it's slated to take up the Supreme Court nomination for Amy Coney Barrett.
This body will not cease to function just because Democrats are afraid they may lose a vote.
On Monday, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell postponed Senate floor activity for the next 2 weeks, but said the Supreme Court hearing will go forward as planned. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
And today, the CDC updated its website to acknowledge that under some conditions, people spread out farther than 6 feet can still become infected with coronavirus via airborne transmission. All right, turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire. Bob, pretty nice Monday. Skies were pretty clear, but you said some smoke could be moving in again.
Yeah, it's the Yogo fire up there in the Lewis and Clark Forest. Let me show you what it looks like. It's there southeast of Great Falls, and as you can see, it's in Judith Basin County. Look at the smoke plume. It is streaming all the way from the fire all the way towards Miles City. Someone's just kind of overshooting the Billings area tonight. We think it'll do that again tomorrow morning. Then as we head into Tuesday night, still looking at the stuff heading towards Miles City, but not into the Billings area. But eventually we see that little turn in the wind comes out of the southwest, and so then all of a sudden the smoke from that fire goes up to Glasgow, but the stuff from the other fires in the other states start moving into Billings, and that's what we see by the time Friday afternoon gets here. So we're looking for some smoky conditions then. But in the meantime, the temperatures are going to be pretty warm. Look at temps getting back into the 80s, then we'll cool back down to the 70s and back to the 80s again. So it's kind of an elevator, up and down for the next 3 or 4 days. We'll chat more about that in a few more minutes.
All right, thank you, Bob. Few details being released after an apparent fight over dogs left one man dead in central Billings last night. The victim was shot in the head just before 8 o'clock in the 1300 block of Custer Avenue. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say an argument over the dogs escalated when the victim left the suspect's home and came back. Officers believe there may have been a struggle because the suspect had scratches on his head. No names or possible charges have been released yet. Officers say the victim was also armed with a gun. The future might be looking a little better for the Billings Mustangs tonight after the team received nearly $500,000 in federal coronavirus relief money. Montana Governor Steve Bullock toured the Mustangs facility at Dealer Park today to find out where that money will be spent. Q2's Mitch Legge brings us the story.
At Dealer Park in Billings, Montana Governor Steve Bullock got a tour of the baseball facility from Mustangs owner Dave Heller. The Billings baseball team received about $440,000 in coronavirus relief money allocated by the state government. Mustangs owner Dave Heller said today that that money is enough to help the Mustangs weather the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the past year, the Mustangs have been pitched 2 curveballs: the pandemic and contract negotiations between minor and Major League Baseball. Heller said the Mustangs likely won't take the field again until June 2021. That would be nearly 2 years that the Mustangs would see $0 in revenue from ticket sales or concessions. Heller said the grant money will help the team pay its $60,000 a year rent to the city to play at Dealer, along with maintenance and utility costs.
The combination of MLB doing contraction and the uncertainty that breeds together with COVID-19 could have put the Mustangs out of business for good. And because of the state, I'm proud to be able to say to you all today that the Billings Mustangs will 100% definitely be playing next year in Dealer Park, right here. No questions asked, no doubt whatsoever.
Heller said he believes Major League Baseball will reach a deal on a contract with the minor league teams by the end of this year. In Billings, Mitch Legge, MTN News.
Thanks, Mitch. And Heller added that he will be able to start hiring back staff members as soon as the MLB releases a schedule. Governor Bullock also stopped by a couple critical infrastructure projects in our area. All right, the first was the Lockwood Sewer and Water District. Last year, Bullock signed infrastructure bills to fund nearly $400 million in overdue sewer, water, bridges, and buildings. And the other public works projects, it was the first time the legislature had agreed on a statewide bond package in over a decade. And today, Bullock also checked in on the construction of the Yellowstone River Bridge segment of the Billings Bypass. That $100 million project is funded with federal and state dollars and expected to be completed in 2021. Bullock's team says last week $32 million in existing bonds were refinanced to take advantage of lower interest rates, saving taxpayers some $7 million. Democratic U.S. House candidate Kathleen Williams reported today that she raised $2.3 million in the past 3 months almost doubling her total for the entire campaign. Williams is locked in what's expected to be a close race with Republican State Auditor Matt Rosendale for Montana's only U.S. House seat. The former state legislator from Bozeman ran for the same seat and lost in 2018 to Republican Congressman Greg Gianforte. Now the seat is open because Gianforte is running for governor. Williams has now raised $4.7 million for the entire campaign, a considerable amount for a U.S. House contest in Montana. National groups on both sides are paying attention to the Montana seat, which hasn't been won by a Democrat since 1994. Rosendale hasn't yet released his fundraising total for the 3 months ending September 30th. Rosendale had raised $1.9 million through the end of July. Well, still ahead on the MTN 10 o'clock news here on Q2. The debate over legalizing marijuana in Montana heating up, some saying if passed, it'll give a boost to public lands. Plus, former Bobcat Derek Abel knows what it means to win a national title. Now he's in California, where the Lakers are chasing a championship of their own. We're going to hear from him a little later from Scott.